When I am shooting, I feel a sense of anticipation and excitement, like the world has just opened up to me in a brand new way. I'm able to see everything with fresh eyes. It becomes an exploration of my own curiosity, and it's all about going along with this sense of wonder, giving attention to moments and things that naturally stand out to me, trying to find something special in the little details that go without notice in my everyday. A very exciting part of this journey has to do with color. It's like a language with an incredible amount of possibilities. Even with its absence, a lot is being said. Every time I experiment more with color or learn something new about it, it feels like my creative vocabulary expands. That is why I'm so excited about Dehancer, an amazing application for color processing, which now even comes in the form of an app that I can carry in my pocket. Hey guys, my name is Robert. In the past, I have talked about Dehancer a few times. This app, which first came out as a plugin for DaVinci Resolve, has now expanded to After Effects, Premiere, Final Cut Pro X, Lightroom, and more. You can see that these guys are serious about growing, but when I heard an iOS version was coming out, I knew I had to get my hands on it. Yes, you heard me right. You can now run this in your iPhone, your iPad, and you can even run their iPad application version on your desktop if your system allows for it. Can you believe that everything from that first sequence was shot and color graded on a phone? How awesome is that? For the past several weeks, I have been using their iPhone application pretty much every day. In this video, I want to give you not only a general overview of the available tools in it, but also useful tips regarding workflow. Additionally, I hope to provide some personal thoughts to help you decide whether this application is for you. Before going any further, let me clarify that I am part of their affiliate program. I have received this application at no cost to do this review. However, everything expressed in this video is 100% my honest opinion. As you will see, I don't believe that everything is perfect, starting with the subscription model that they have chosen for their iOS app. Unlike the desktop version, there's no option for making a one-time only payment. However, if you decide to buy a license for any of their other host applications from their website, use my code CRAZY4COLOR to receive a 10% discount. Unfortunately, there's no way to apply this discount for iPhone or iPad, but you can still download the application and give it a try for a limited number of images or videos at no cost. With that out of the way, I have to tell you that having Dehancer in your pocket opens up a whole lot of possibilities. As a wedding photographer that oftentimes has to travel, now I can transfer some files to my phone after the event and edit a preview for my clients right away. I am currently grading all of my wedding photography work with Dehancer in their desktop version, so any edits that I do on my phone will be very consistent with what the clients would get at the end. Another thing you can do, for example, is that if you got a Bluetooth microphone, is that you can get some decent quality audio, but with Dehancer, you can elevate the quality of a video that you can take right there on the spot to post on social media like Instagram or YouTube without the need of having to go through all the process back in your computer, which is super convenient for some kind of situations. I just finished grading that video. It's straight out of the app. One thing that you have to know is that this application is very intense on memory. So for that clip that you just saw on my iPhone 14 Pro, let's say, it says that it will take about 3.5 minutes to save. Another thing worth mentioning is that on desktop you need separate plugins if you want to grade video or photo, but here you have it all in one package. Now let me take you through some of my workflow at the same time that I show you around the interface. Before anything else, I have to tell you that when I am shooting photography, as much as I can, I shoot in RAW format. Everything that you will see in this video about weddings is Fujifilm RAW files, and everything else is taken on iPhone Pro RAW format. This is not necessary, but it is important if you want to make the most out of this app. At the time being, Dehancer does not directly process RAW images. They mention this on their user's manual. When you import a RAW file into Dehancer, you're actually editing a high-quality image generated by iOS. but you do not have that same flexibility that RAW files offer. So what you want to do is, before bringing anything into Dehancer, try to make your photos flat. Remove any digital contrast by lowering the highlights, bringing up the shadows, recovering all the details that you need, and if possible, avoid clipping. Later inside the app, we will add this contrast back in an analog kind of processing. You can use the stock app to prepare the image, but my favorite mobile application for this so far out of everything that I have tried is Raw Power. But there's also one more big thing that no one seems to be mentioning. As it is now, the Dehancer for mobile is optimized for working only with images in sRGB color space. This is an issue because the photos you take with your phone or almost every other app are on display P3, which is a different color space. What happens is that you can edit a photo in the Dehancer, and at the time of saving, you will see a bit of a different color. This can be frustrating, to tell you the truth. I know that the team is working on a fix, but while that comes out, you want to convert to sRGB any photos before you send them to the Dehancer. Again, I do this directly in Raw Power. You can even set the application to do it automatically in its settings. Now let's jump into the Dehancer. And let's start with this street photo. First, we're in this area of presets. Whatever settings you used the last time are automatically selected. This is helpful to speed up your process when editing several photos, but you can also select from several different categories from down here. You can save your own, you can export them, and even use them on the Dehancer for Lightroom or the other way around. These are usually great as a starting point. When we're talking about film photography, there's a lot of factors that contribute to the end result of an image. Things that go beyond just snapping a frame on a specific film stock. We're talking about negative development, later printing or scanning. So it's not just the way that photographic emulsion reacts to light, but there's also chemicals and temperature and time that can affect the contrast, brightness, and color during each step of the process. Part of the magic of film photography has to do with all of these variables that affect the results. The Dehancer is like nothing else out there because the team has taken all of this into account, and after years of research, they have translated the analog process into the closest possible digital equivalent. This app is not just a collection of filters or presets, but it's a group of parameters that you can manipulate just as you would in a darkroom. And that is aside from the extremely accurate film emulation options that they give you. And we have all of that flexibility because, as I showed you before, I flattened the image beforehand. So let's start working on this image without a preset, using the original. And then we jump to this Edit tab. Here in the bottom, we have all the tools. The first thing you usually want to do is go into the film section. You can activate or deactivate each module by tapping on it. I love that you have the option to see categories of film stocks for faster navigation. I want you to see everything in more detail, so let me split the screen and show you the top preview on the left and the bottom controls on the right. Let's choose Kodak Vision 3 250D. You can work on the modules in any order that you want, but in my personal opinion, the last thing you should do is deal with the color. First is exposure and contrast. So we go into the print module, which gives you some options that affect both tonality and contrast. This is a film stock, so I will stay with the 2383 option. You have this histogram if you want to know where your image is clipping, but I usually pay more attention to that after manipulating contrast and brightness. You can add a vignette, you have controls for that here. Whenever I add film grain, I want to zoom in all the way so that I can make accurate decisions on this. The app is actually regenerating the image with grain, which is what happens in the analog world. Because of that, we're also affecting sharpening here, not only with the resolution slider, but also with the amount of grain that you add. Let me show you an extreme setting. You can see that the image is less sharp now. Just find the right balance. This is a place where you can get rid of that extreme sharpening from your phone camera. Every time I change the setting, I may go back and adjust my white or black points or exposure. Here I am clipping the whites a bit, but let me show you this amazing tool, compression. I turn it on and immediately the clipping was reduced. This is not a simple slider to bring down the highlights like you may be used to. You have many different options to control how you are affecting the tonal range that you want, where you want the compression to kick in, and you can also control saturation or the impact that it will have in the overall image. This is one of those aspects in which I feel like Dehancer created something that we didn't have before, because the way that analog photography works with overexposure or bright areas is different than digital photos. Another tool that is also very useful is this developer area. They mentioned that here we are controlling variables that would depend on the actual chemical processing of our negative. The way I personally look at this is as a tool to add or remove contrast, not only in the middle range, which you can do on the print module, but on the shadows or highlights. This gamma correction slider or color separation doesn't do anything until you add or remove contrast with this first slider, by the way. The compression and developer modules are somewhat new and not talked about enough, but I find them very powerful because they are dealing with the actual interpretation of your source image. Let me show you what I mean. I have this other image where I am adding contrast and working on the exposure as usual with the print and expand modules. Where I had this very red dress from this girl. I didn't add any saturation. This was added only by manipulating contrast. Now, if I hold my finger on top of the image to see the original file, I am seeing that I am losing detail. The red color is clipping. But even if I lower the saturation here, I am not seeing any improvement. It seems like the red becomes darker and less saturated, but that's it. Even with the color density slider. But see what happens when we go into the developer module and use this color boost slider. See? Our red becomes naturally less saturated, but we have detail back because this is controlling the saturation and clipping before the rest of the processing. Since I'm already here, let me show you the halation tool. And I'll bring some sliders up for you to see more clearly what this is doing. It basically is adding a red glow around the areas of contrast. And also it affects the rest of the image. It's one of those analog imperfections that give your images a certain look. Blue is doing something similar to a pro mist filter, like a dreamy glow on the brightest areas. Let's zoom in. That's without bloom. Now you can see the red halation that I was telling you. Now I turn on bloom. I love it. After adding halation, bloom, or other effects, I will still go back to the print module and adjust exposure if necessary. Or I will check the grain again. Let me tap and hold on the image to check a before and after. That's really cool, isn't it? You cannot even tell that it's a phone photo. It's at this point, after working with everything else, that I go into directly manipulating the color. Even before that, I always go back into my film module. Let me show you with this other image. The reason is that many times I can get much more natural results on color change with the slider of pushing and pulling. For every selected film, it's different. Here I can see that moving it to the right, it makes my image a bit warmer, and moving it to the left, it makes it magenta. The contrast or exposure may be affected a bit, but I am seeing a possibility that I want to explore further. In this case, I would like a touch of magenta on my highlights, and then I can go to the color head. Also, we are manipulating the colors here in an analog kind of way, like if we were dealing with color gels. And I always long press to see a before and after. This is just scratching the surface, guys. Every single one of the modules and sliders has so much knowledge and possibilities built into them. I have learned so much about color with this application, you have no idea. You can check some articles on their website where they go into detail about what everything does, what's the science behind, and how everything works. Oh, and by the way, when you bring a video in the application, you also have the option to play it back, even though it will not be as smooth, and I can get that because of all the processing. But you also get two additional modules. Film breadth, which is like a variation in exposure, contrast, or color happening periodically, and gate width, which is like a tiny bit of shakiness on the image, imitating the feeling that you get when you would see a film through a projector. I have to say that I would not use my iPhone for very long video projects. You probably could, but with all the processing power that it takes, I would personally not want to risk it, or I don't want to have to wait forever for it to save. Still, honestly, I am extremely impressed with how much you can do with this app. The biggest negative for me is that it currently doesn't process the raw files, so I have to flatten images before bringing them in. Also, there's that sRGB problem that I think will be fixed very soon. Another big thing for me has to do with its integration with the file system or with the photo library. I wish I could just select photos to edit from my files, or if I could save them back in there after exporting, not only in the photo library, that would be great. I wish I could set the name of the photos or the videos when they are saved, or keep the original name. It would be incredible that when I export, I had the option to stack the edit on top of the original photo. This is something that many apps do to avoid having so many duplicates. Most of these are little details that I am sure will be improved over time. If you're only looking for a quick filter to change colors, or if you think that the only useful thing about all of this is the grain, halation, or bloom tools, like I have seen some people say, then I would say that maybe this is not for you. Or it's possible that the price tag will not fit what you're looking for. What you're paying, in my opinion, only makes sense if you look at the app and all that you can do with every single one of its tools. If you have any experience with analog photography, if you want to learn and experiment, if you're looking for a tool that you can even use in a professional setting or something that can pretty much change the way that you understand and experience color, then you will definitely find value in this. Honestly, I love analog photography, but with the cost of film alone, this application already makes sense. And I'm not saying that this is a replacement, but maybe it's as close as you will get in the color processing side. I'm the kind of person that is always carrying a camera everywhere, but having the Dehancer in my pocket has even inspired me to shoot much more with my phone. I feel like I'm in this journey of trying to understand and use images as a medium for expression, and it seems like the Dehancer was just built by people that are so passionate about this in a similar way. So I hope you give it a try. Remember, if you decide to purchase any of their desktop applications, you can use my discount code CrazyForColor. The photos that you saw in this video were taken by both my wife and I, so if you liked it and want to see more, feel free to follow on Instagram where I'm sharing more work graded with Dehancer. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and see you soon.